Starting in 5, 4, 3.
Yummy like a gummy bear.
It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this for February 14th, 2024. Happy Valentine's Day. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, Sony warns fans not to expect familiar PlayStation games for a very long time, and it sets its forecast lower for PS5 sales. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host and lover to Game Mess Mornings. It's Jordan Midler. Jordan, how are you doing?
I'm good, babe. How are you?
Doing real good. Glad to see you. Yeah. Glad to talk to you. I missed you.
I missed you too.
So, we'll busy,
always have Paris.
Busy.
Yeah. Suddenly, I know this is a really boring and cliche thing to say, but 2023 didn't stop.
Nope.
These January and February games. Let me tell you something, Jeff Grubb. Let me tell you something, brother. Good games.
Good video games are out there, and they keep coming out non-stop. It is very easy already to begin putting together a game of the year list, which is deeply troubling because it's February 14th. It's Valentine's Day. Yep. That shouldn't be possible. But yeah, you know what? That's fine. We got a long weekend over here, so I'm going to be spending that, like catching up on a few things, trying to get Like a Dragon into a place where it's like, okay, I can see the end now. I'm going to just head to that. Maybe play a few other things.
Yeah, there's games to be played. What's this long weekend in aid of? Is it some weird American holiday? Is it like...
I think it's President's Day.
Oh, of course.
Right. Which I think is actually Abraham Lincoln's birthday, but we're not allowed to have holidays about like any individual president because that'd be too much like having a king, I guess. So we're like, we'll just call it President's Day, and we'll wash it a little bit and it'll be cool. So yeah, President's Day, and thank you to the presidents for giving me a 3-day weekend. Let's fucking go.
Imagine having a king. How embarrassing would that be?
That'd be real embarrassing.
With a monarchy.
Yeah, God. You need some Helldivers too to get you some democracy over there. That's what needs to happen.
Don't worry, he's not very well at the moment. I don't think we'll have that king for long.
Just don't worry, we got a Blight Club coming up. We'll take care of everything for you guys. Oh well, yeah, man. It's so a lot of games, a lot of stuff. You got anything else going on in your life, or is it just nonstop? Like, oh man, covering games and playing games. I know that you've been doing a ton of reviews into last year. Has that mostly continued?
Oh yeah, the reviews don't stop. It's a very privileged position because we have essentially two people, myself and Chris Scullion, that do all reviews. So you get the pick of the litter, you get the cream of the crop,
of course,
and that's what I'm doing at the moment. Last week though, I sacked all that off and went to a party with the Pokemon company and came away with this lovely corduroy Pikachu, which was a real highlight. You might be able to see his corduroy kind of fuzz here, but yeah, they released a new expansion to the trading card game, took us down to London and gave us 1 million cards. That sound you just heard was Jan Ochoa screaming from San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's right.
If he wants to be part of this, then he's welcome to come over. I'll give him a place to stay, It'll make my streams look much nicer, to be fair.
He's already planning it out. I guarantee it. You said that. That's all he needed to hear. He wants to go to the Pokemon Nationals Worlds that are going to be in San Francisco. So it's going to be in this town.
Oh, yeah.
So nice. He's like, okay, how can I compete in this? So now he's already looking at like going to regionals and stuff to compete so he can get into the Worlds. And he's also, for the game, but also for the card game. So it's all over for him. It's over for Jan. Our boy needs help.
Don't worry. If things come to pass that we hope, and let's say in June time we're all in the same situation, me and Jan will record a wee once a year Pokemon podcast.
All right, I love it. Let's make it happen. All right, let's explain what we do here. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. Sorry, the kiddo likes that. All of a sudden, she was saying hello, YouTube to me the other day. I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't know you knew about that. We have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with PS5 misses ambitious sales target now in its later stage of its life cycle. This is from Darren Bonthus at GameSpot. We're now several years into the current generation of consoles, and according to Sony, the PS5 has now entered the, quote, the latter stage of its life cycle. Sony's senior vice president, Naomi Matsuka, has predicted sales of the console to start slowing down in the next fiscal year, which runs from April 2024 and concludes in March of 2025, which will result in Sony adopting a more flexible strategy. Looking ahead, this is a quote, PS5 will enter the later stage of its life cycle, Matsuka said via Bloomberg. As such, we will put more emphasis on the balance between profitability and sales. And I think by that they mean profitability versus sales. They're going to focus on the profitability. For this reason, we expect the annual sales pace of PS5 hardware will start falling from the next fiscal year. According to Sony, 8.2 million PS5s were sold during the third quarter of its current financial year, ending off December 31st, 2024, but these numbers were lower than expected. The company has revised its sales forecast from a very ambitious goal of 25 million PS5 sold throughout the fiscal year down to 21 million sales. 54.7 million PS5 consoles have been sold since it launched in November 2020. Couple of things here, Jordan. They're probably going to sell more than 21 million PlayStation 5s. They're probably not going to sell.
I would imagine so.
They're not going to sell 25 million. We've kind of been able to eyeball that for quite some time as well. We've known that was pretty ambitious, and it became more obvious as those sales for the PS5, the really aggressive like price reduction multiple times throughout the last year, where it's like, man, the PS5's on sale, and it's like, oh, the reason they were doing that is because they did have this really ambitious, like, we got to grow our install base. This is the year to do it. That's what we're doing right now. So let's go out there and make that happen. And that has hurt their profitability, which we'll talk about here in a little bit as well. But they've kind of pulled out a lot of the stops in terms of they've already had very aggressive pricing for the hardware, and they weren't able to get to 25 million. And now they're like looking down the barrel of, we were kind of hurt a little bit by lowering the price. So we're not going to do that too much more. And especially in light of we might have a PS5 Pro coming down the pipeline, things like that. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to try to make more money from the things that we're already selling. That's the strategy here. It does seem like slightly early to be like, hey, the PS5 is going to sell less next year than it did the year before. We're going into year 5. Is that what it is? Year 5. Usually year 5 and year 6 is still on the year 5 at the very least is like traditionally still on the upswing. In the last few generations, years 5 and 6 both I think usually see growth still. But I think Sony's like, hey, we recognize that things might not work out that way, and we're going to play it safe, and that means trying to extract more profit out of what we're doing right now, right?
Yeah, I think the PlayStation 5 sales story will be an interesting one when it's all said and done, because the PlayStation 5 has never existed in a normal game selling economy.
Yeah.
It launches straight into the pandemic. It becomes a hype beast item in a way that the PS4 and PS3 never were. So those sales are kind of not artificially inflated, but they have to account for a market that isn't simply people buying this console to play those games, to get your attach rate. And also something that my boss Andy brings up a lot of the time, the PS5 is a weird generation because purely from a game buying perspective, you get your PS5, you log in, you have all your games. Why would you really buy another game like straight away if you've got your Call of Duties, if you've got your Fortnites? So I think they are running up against a couple of factors here, and also a lot of the world's in economic decline, and that is not getting any better. So. No. Yeah, I think people kind of shat themselves this morning when they started talking about latter stages and things like that. But if you look at a console life cycle, when it is the main thing, we are kind of in the midst of that now. I know that feels weird because the PS5 and Xbox Series X still feel new, and there's still this weird sense that there aren't actual games for it, which I think if you line them up, there are plenty of games.
There's plenty of games.
So I brought up a GameSpot article here from the PS4 games of 2017, which is the same kind of time period we are in now from the PS5. And it's like the first Horizon, and it's Gravity Rush 2, and it's Uncharted Lost Legacy. Like, the kind of people obviously look back at console generations as a whole and with these rose-tinted glasses, but the feeling that the PS5 generation hasn't kicked on yet or something like that, I don't personally get. I also think this is kind of reflective of Sony's new approach to just, we have to make money from this PlayStation thing because it's the only thing that makes us money.
Yep. And I mean, that colors a lot of this. I've got a couple other headlines from all this PlayStation news. This is from their financial earnings report. I think I would say this does feel more than ever like Jim Ryan got out while the getting was good. They had set up the PS5 to be what it is, and now the PS5 needs to kind of like grow into this new thing that is sustainable and is a profit extraction machine, and figuring out like how exactly to perform all that and make all that work is going to be tricky. Not going to be impossible. They're probably going to figure it out, but it's going to be kind of a bunch of headaches to like get to that point, and it will require some of the things we're going to hear from the current head of PlayStation, essentially, because Jim Ryan is on the way out. As of April, he will be fully out, where basically it's going to just like, this sounds a little strange. It's like, no, they're just like, hey, we got to figure out what the future looks like, because we don't necessarily know what that is at this time. We're happy with the success, but we got to keep growing, because the one part of our business that we can rely on, as you said, is PlayStation. One of the things that has caused people to be a little bit like, wait, what's going on this morning is this headline. No major Sony franchise game releases are coming out until April 2025 at the earliest. This is from Darren Bonthus at GameSpot. It looks like the next year will be a relatively quiet one on the first-party front for Sony, as the company has said that it will not be releasing any major PlayStation franchise games before April 2025 at the earliest. Speaking in a financial call, Sony Interactive Entertainment boss Hiroki Todoroki explained that while major projects are currently in development, it'll be focusing more on its live service games throughout its next financial year, which ends on March 31st, 2025. And this is the quote. Regarding first-party software, we aim to continue to focus on producing high-quality works and developing live service games, Todoroki said. But while major projects are currently under development, we do not plan to release any new major existing franchise titles next fiscal year, like with the likes of God of War Ragnarok and Marvel Spider-Man 2. Although the burden of acquisition-related costs will ease next fiscal year, we expect profit from first-party software to decrease slightly from this fiscal year due to the impact of a decrease in sales. So people are seeing that and going, so there aren't going to be any games. And very quickly, it's like, well, no, we already know Rise of Ronin's coming. We know that the Concord, one of the live service games, is scheduled to come out this year. That's the stuff that is scheduled for sure. And then it's like, there might be new games entries in franchises that already exist. They just might not be major in PlayStation's eyes when they're talking to investors. They said God of War, they said Spider-Man. These are the franchises that sell 15 million copies lifetime or more. And there might be stuff in like I said, I've heard maybe Astro does happen this year. So if that happens, like that's pretty big for me. I get why Sony's probably not thinking that's a major one for us, at least not yet. Hopefully they could turn it into a major one and then a lot of this changes around. But if you get above that, and it's like you're talking about Ghost of Tsushima 2, whatever that's going to be called, and then anything to the likes of that, those were probably waiting until next year at the earliest. How do you feel about this?
Yeah, Ghosts 2 is the one that's kind of stuck out for me as like the one that we know is happening, like it's on the boil. It's probably going to be their next thing they consider of that size. So yes. Yeah, maybe like that's a 2025 game. Obviously, things have changed, but we know where Insomniac are generally thinking for their next couple of games. Like you kind of lay out the deck. You kind of you book the territory, and it makes sense for them to say something like this. It's hurtful for people that really love the Sony first party stuff, and they kind of expect a big one of those every year. But this seems like it'll be a bit more of a fallow year. And I think that's just a natural repercussion of having such an insane run. Like, studios are busy doing their stuff. Like, Housemarque's next thing is miles away. Naughty Dog's next thing is miles away. Santa Monica's next thing, miles away. The Blue Point project, they can really say whatever they want about that whenever. So
I mean, that's also a new IP, so that could happen this year. They didn't say anything about no new IPs.
Yeah, and it's the kind of thing that they can... I suppose it depends how literally you want to take this. If they're going to, they could release a big game and be like, no, we meant what we can consider our quadruple A God of War, our Last of Us, our Spider-Man's. But you get as you say, like an Astro, you get something like Rise of the Ronin, you get something smaller. Maybe they go into the back catalog and remake something, they're not going to leave you with no games. They're just maybe not going to leave you with the. You have things like the Horizon live service game. Maybe that's this year.
For real?
They have a lot bubbling under the surface, and they're cogent enough of the fact of the idea that people come to PlayStation for these big single player experiences, and you have to keep those people happy in order to make the kind of live service infiltration work. So I don't think it's the end of the world. It's not super unexpected. I think it's potentially setting up for a huge 2025 if things really start lining up like that. Maybe a 2025 alongside a PlayStation Pro, who can say?
Right. And it's, I mean, you know, the word right now is the PlayStation 5 Pro could launch later this year. You know, they probably do have something to go alongside that. Whether it's, you know, it's not going to be a new God of War, obviously not going to be a new Naughty Dog
Bloodborne remake. You know,
right.
That Bloodborne remake
if it's a Bloodborne remaster, they would probably be just fine, I think. Yeah. So, like, and frankly, something like that could work. I mean, it probably will be something along those lines. Another remaster is one that's easy to pull off, so they might be able to position that advantageously for themselves. This, like you said, a lot of these studios are reloading right now, and that's the reality of game development as it stands. This is a manifestation of the unsustainability of this to a certain extent. If you are relying on having massive first-party AAA games that have $200 to $300 million budgets, and you need several of those per year, that's just not going to be physically possible. You are going to find yourself in a situation where eventually you have a year or two where maybe you have one of those that really stands out. And, you know, Sony predicted this. They knew this was coming, so they've been focusing a lot on partnerships, and that's why a Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is going to go a very long way towards solving whatever this problem is for people who are actually buying and purchasing and playing games on the PlayStation 5. It's like, are you really hurting all that bad if you're getting Final Fantasy VII Rebirth? You know, by looking at that demo, going to be a very good game. So, like, is this really a problem for you? No, it isn't. But for Sony, like, they're saying, hey, this is going to be a little bit of a problem for us. We're expecting to make a little bit less money. So, because we think PS5 might not even sell as well because of this, or at least in slightly part due to this. So, for Sony, they're like, hey, we got to find some solutions here. That was the 12 live service games. That was their answer to this for the last several years. Again, speaking Jim Ryan, getting out while the getting is good, that stopped being the answer pretty clearly here in the last year or so. And it's like, oh, well, we got nothing else. We got to figure something else out. And these companies will begin trying some new strategies here very soon. The scary thing for everyone across the industry is there is no one obvious answer about what you should be doing other than making $250 million games or rolling the dice with a live service game, which now feels like the odds are even more greatly stacked against you than ever before. So that's where a lot of the uncertainty seems to be coming from. And Sony is speaking to that a little bit, even as the market leader. You know, they officially won the console war, and Sony themselves are saying, and so what? We still got to grow, and we don't know where that's coming from. But they'll probably, listen, they're going to figure it out. And it's even with this year being light for established franchise IPs, like, they're going to have a lot of momentum to carry them through. And if they do have a strong 2025, they're going to be just fine, right, Jordan?
Yeah. As you say, your Final Fantasies and things like this, the people that buy PlayStation 5s go to the shops and they see your Final Fantasies, your Stellar Blade, they see that ass, those ass physics in the shops. They're not the people that are on Twitter with like comparison images of like, oh, look how many games we've got, look how many games they've got. It's third party. No one cares. Absolutely no one on earth cares. The eating's good for people that have a PS5 this year. So I wouldn't worry. Fucking play Alan Wake 2.
Yeah, go play a video game for real. Yeah. And I think that a lot of the industry is just trying to find a way to transition to understanding how to get away from the mindset that games only count if they are big AAA games from established publishers. It's like most people have already moved on from that way of thinking. And when Helldivers 2 shows up, obviously published by Sony, but when Helldivers 2 shows up and it's $40, so like no one's like thinking like this is a diminished experience because of the way it's being presented. They're playing it like, and they can't help have a really good time because it's really well designed and everyone understands what it's going for and it nails what it's going for. And there's a lot of games more like Helldivers 2 these days than there are going to be like AAA games. And so if you're willing to like look over in these spaces, like especially over on Steam, you're going to find a lot of games these days. So there really is not much to be worried about it. Like, oh my God, are all the games I like going away? It's like, no, they're just coming from different places, and maybe they don't present themselves as having the biggest budgets in the world as we understand them to be today. It's going to be a little bit different, but still, like, who cares? It could be as good as Helldivers 2.
Yeah, god damn it, Helldivers 2. I'm so happy because I was a original Helldiver purist. I'm so happy that when they said they were making a Helldivers 2, it was like, come on, what are we doing here?
Mm-hmm.
Like, who remembers Helldivers? It's me and fucking Greg Miller that remember Helldivers, and now look at them. They're so popular that they're having to release daily updates being like, we're sorry the game's so broken. That's what you have to go for.
We're sorry so many people are playing the game, it's breaking everything. We're sorry we're so cool and popular. Helldivers 2, pretty much a Helldivers 1, just from a different perspective, and that really, really works. It works very well. All right, sticking with Sony, PlayStation's new chairman says its studios need to improve when it comes to business. This is from Andy Robinson at VGC. PlayStation's new chairman and Sony's current president was asked for his early assessment working directly with the games business during an earnings call on Wednesday, and told listeners he believes its studios can improve when it comes to business. Sony president, COO, and CFO Hiroki Totoki assumed the role of chairman of Sony Interactive Entertainment in October, and that's ahead of CEO Jim Ryan's retirement. From April 1st, Totoki will act as interim CEO of SIE. Sharing his initial impressions from his first 4 months working directly with SIE, the executive said he has made a point to attend management meetings and visit PlayStation's game development studios to get a better understanding of the business. The Sony president said that while he was impressed with the motivation and creativity of studio workers, he believed there was room for improvement when it came to how they invest money and plan development schedules in order for overall business to achieve its growth goals. Sony announced strong PS5 sales of 16.4 million consoles sold, I believe, through the first 3 quarters of the fiscal year. However, while the game's business revenue was up 15% year on year, operating profit was down significantly by 25.9%, which Sony saw was partly due to a decrease in sales and an increase in losses from hardware due to promotions. That goes back to the cutting the cost of the price of the PlayStation 5 to sell a lot of those. It's been about 4 months since I became chairman, and I'm trying to demonstrate leadership and have as many meetings as possible with the management teams. That's what Totoki told media investors listening to the web call. I've also visited studios, and everyone is working really hard to fulfill their responsibility to try to optimize the business, and I understand that. But overall growth and unsustainable profitability for increasing margins, how will that translate to these goals? I don't think people understand that deeply. I think that this is a problem of the organization. So as far as I'm concerned, I try to understand what is happening in the company, in the industry, and also from the perspective of analysts. And I try to explain that in a transparent manner so that people can recognize and notice these issues, so that we can have a harmonized approach going forward. The executive continued. People who work in the studios have very high motivation. They're very highly motivated. They're very good people, and they have great creative minds and knowledge of live streaming. However, having said that, when it comes to the business, I think there is room for improvement, and that's to do with how to use money and the schedule development, as we said earlier. So, listen, we're talking about on one side of things, then be like, hey, we are expecting to sell fewer PlayStations, and we just got kind of kicked around with in terms of our profitability last year. Now, this next year is about making profits. And at the same time, they're saying they're not going to have a lot of first-party established IPs that they think can sell 15 to 20 million copies. So how are they going to increase profitability? They're going to have to cut costs. They're going to have to look around and be like, we got to be smarter with this stuff. And at the same time that they're saying this, we know, based on Insomniac's forecast from all that leaked data, that one game costs $200 million, the next game costs $250 million, and now they're looking down the barrel of a Spider-Man 3, I believe, that they were projected would cost $350 million or around that amount. And that, that sounds unsustainable. I think what he's saying here is, yeah, we don't want to be going down that route anymore. We need to find ways to keep costs down. Do you think that will show up on the screen? Are you worried about this in any way, Jordan?
No, I think they will much quicker shutter studios that aren't their their kind of top tier lineup rather than let it reflect in the quality of product, because that's something that's harder to roll back from.
Yeah.
And the public consciousness. As much as we eat and breathe it every day, the average person who plays PlayStation 5 games doesn't know about how bad the industry was the last year and a half. So, but they will notice if The Last of Us 3, the graphics in that don't look that good. Why would I buy that? What's the point in that? So I think it's a combination of maybe enforcing these studios to be a little less ridiculous with how expensive they're projecting these games to be, whether that means making the game shorter, making the raise less traced. I don't know, as a kind of layman, how that would translate to practicalities of making a game, but I worry that Sony's stable is big, and there's a lot of studios that you don't really hear much from. Like, you remember the days of like back when they had like Sony Liverpool and all these weird little studios. There are still a few of those kicking about, and in the current climate of how ready companies are to just shutter things like that, I think that is more likely. And someone tweeted it today. It sounds like he's standing over the entire studio suite, sharpening an axe. Like, if you're not paying your way, if you're not singing for your supper, as they say in Scotland, then we can't have you anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems like that's what's happening here. That's a little bit like, is that the answer? Because they're already in a situation where they have a handful of studios that they rely on to get their gold. And, Insomniac is, a crown jewel there. Naughty Dog, when it's able to get a game out, clearly right there as well. Handful of other studios that sell a lot of copies whenever they put out a game. Sucker Punch, obviously. And it's like, okay, they've tried to take other studios and move them up to that tier. Ben's studio, I think, being the best example, where it's like, it's a studio that's been around for a very long time. They fucking made Bubsy 3D, goddammit. So they've been making games for a long time. We're like, no, we're going to make you one, like basically another Naughty Dog. And it's like, actually, that's very hard to do. And it's like, well, if that's hard to do and you fail at it, and now you're looking at a studio and be like, well, you're not going to be Naughty Dog. What are we even going to do with you? I guess make something. Is the solution to shut them down? I mean, listen, I'm not saying to shut down Ben's studio. I'm just like thinking this out loud. It's like, I don't necessarily know. I hope what they can try is to get a little bit more creative with what a PlayStation game means. When that PlayStation Studios intro movie, the Marvel Studios thing that they do at the beginning of a PlayStation game happens, and it's like, man, yeah, all right, there's some games in there that are clearly like, hey, these are prestige games. There's a handful. It's like, oh yeah, Sackboy's in there as well. It's like, like Sackboy probably didn't sell enough to justify like what they put into that as far as PlayStation's maybe concerned. Maybe, have another swing of the axe at something like that maybe can establish PlayStation first party games as being like, yeah, they are The Last of Us, but they can also be, and it's something akin to any number of franchises that Nintendo has that cost a fraction of what it costs to produce The Last of Us. Has that like ship already set sail and Sony's missed it, or do you think they could turn around and maybe get back on board with some like lower budget games that that have the potential to sell very well?
I don't actually know how much it cost, but I love the Lost Legacy, like the Uncharted spin-off game. Like I love Miles Morales.
Yeah, their standalones are the best of those out of anybody doing that stuff, right? Yeah,
it distills what is good about the big game into something that's so kind of like, I mean, they'd probably still like to charge $70 for it, but
of course,
it felt like they were going to do something like that. And it's someone pointed out in the chat that Sega and Nintendo get away with, in quotes, using the same map and stuff like that all the time. Like, I feel like if Sony were to do that for a couple of games, like a couple of side stories, it wouldn't be that big a deal. I think they're just Sony's a big old company. They've been doing this a long time. It's hard to switch gears like that. That feels like you need an Andy House or a Jim Ryan to come in and make that kind of edict. I think if a studio goes to Sony with that pitch, they're like, what the fuck are you, just go get back to making the next $70 thing. Like, so I think it's I think what ends up happening is we have seen the very peak of Sony first party single player games coming out at pace in the PS4 era. It will never be that volume again. It just can't. It's not possible. I think they'll become, not in terms of quality or anything like that, but it'll become like a Chris Nolan film, where one of those comes out every 3 or 4 years and everyone stops, because everyone does stop when a God of War comes out and Last of Us comes out. It's all anyone is playing. So I think that is more likely, and that's what will get the $2-3 million, $100 million budgets. But I think maybe there is room for your Helldivers, you're not quite indie, not the $40 game, the mythical $40 game, because anyone who's seen stuff about Helldivers on Twitter and stuff like that been like, I was going to play it, but I mean, it's only a $40 game. That doesn't seem like it's worth it for me. Like,
don't see that anywhere. Yeah, it's very curious. It's like no one's talking about this being a budget game. It's like, well, we're getting away with something here is what it feels like, until you kind of maybe see the monetization a little bit, and then it's like people are a little butthurt about that. But there's definitely something to be said about Helldivers, and we'll get to that in a second. But what this reads to me as is this, Todoki coming in, looking around, and being pretty jealous of what Nintendo has going for them.
Can you take this out?
Oh, you want me to take this Lego apart? Okay, yeah, sure, kiddo. This is the perfect time to do that too.
What piece is it? Is it
it's like a little circle, like satellite dish on a very thin, like one size one, like not one of like the 1x1s, but like the 1x0s.
Have you got nails? Have you got nails?
I got nails, but this is getting. Oh, got it, kiddo. Come here. There you go.
Hell yeah!
All right,
that's some dad strength.
So yeah, what this reads to me as is, hey, wouldn't it be nice if we could have something like a fucking Super Mario Party that sells 17 million I think it's at like 20 million copies, honestly.
PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale 2.
Right.
Come on now.
And it's like,
let's do it.
I think they know that like something like that would be very difficult for them to pull off. So it's like, but is there a PlayStation version of smaller budget games that everyone does want to buy? And it's like, well, that's tough, because the audience that PlayStation appeals to is the very discerning gamer, the person that's like, no, I play the best of the best. I'm spending my time on the shit that looks expensive, because that makes it feel like it's worth my time. And then Nintendo's over there like, hey, you have a family? Well, here, buy a Switch for everybody in your family. And it's like the kind of the path of least resistance for them to very easily get to a lot more money by spending a lot less up front. Oh, more Legos?
Welcome to your Lego Minute.
Yeah, kiddo, yeah.
Lego Minute.
Yeah, okay. This is the last thing I can do for you until my show's over, okay? Thanks, Ryan.
Remember Lego games? Did you bring them back?
Yeah. Listen, that Star Wars one sold a butt ton. They're probably going to do more of those.
It really did. Anytime you talk to Chris Dring, all he talks about is how much money TT made off Star Wars Lego. And don't report this. I am 99% sure a Harry Potter one of those is quite close to being shown.
Oh, so. Yeah. I mean, they've done a bunch of those in the past. Everyone's looking around being like, this seems like this could work even better now than ever before. All right. So you mentioned Helldivers, $40. It's doing very well. It's doing very well, and it might be a harbinger of one of the ways that PlayStation does plan to make more profits from its games. Sony wants to improve PlayStation profit margins with more aggressive PC release strategy. This is from Chris Scullion at VGC. Sony president and PlayStation chairman Hiroki Todoki wants the company to be more aggressive when it comes to improving its gaming division's profit margins, which he says can partly be achieved with a greater focus on bringing first-party games to PC. During a Q&A session following Sony's latest financial results briefing, Todoki was asked why the game division is seeing an increase in gross income but not in profits, and whether there were any initiatives planned to improve the bottom line. Todoki replied that there were two main factors that he wanted to focus on: hardware and first-party games. In terms of hardware, he noted that the cost reduction in this console cycle is really difficult to come by compared to previous generations due to the increased price of components. A lot of that's due to the pandemic. That really caused a lot of problems with that. And implied that the console prices wouldn't be dropping while it looked for more ways to improve margins. How can we, given the situation, put our product lines together to make it affordable without relying on steep discounts to reasonably sell them to continue our commercial journey on a sustainable basis, he asked. I personally think that's important, and there's an opportunity in that. Todoki then addressed the topic of first-party games and made it clear that he feels releasing them multi-platform, which he seemingly clarified as meaning PC, and almost certainly that's what he means, continues to be the way forward. In the past, we wanted to popularize consoles, and a first-party title's main purpose was to make the console popular, he explained. This is true, but there's a synergy to it. So if you have strong first-party content, not only on our console, but also other platforms like computers, a first-party game can be grown with multi-platform, and that can help operating profit to improve. So that's another one we want to proactively work on. So what we've seen up to this point is then be like, hey, we have all these games, and almost all of them are going to go to PC. Even like Marvel's Spider-Man is going to go to PC. It's like one of our marquee titles. Now, we know we can make more money by putting it on PC, and they've done all right up to this point, but they've been coming out 2 to 3 years after they hit the PlayStation. That's when they finally hit PC. And he's saying, well, we're going to, expand how we're putting games on PC. So you're already putting all of them on PC, so how can you expand? Obviously by moving up the date. And we see like with Helldivers is by far the most played PlayStation release on PC in terms of concurrent players on Steam. One of the ways that we measure popularity. It's not perfect, but it's one of the ways we measure it. And it's like got up to 200,000 concurrent players on Steam, whereas I think God of War had 80,000 concurrents at its peak. So it's like clearly this is a strategy that can work. And if you were to put these games out on PC on day one, seems like you could sell even more copies because a lot of the PlayStation gamers are going to keep just buying it on PlayStation. It's like now you're just reaching a whole new audience that is very excited at the time of release. This is probably happening. People have been speculating about this for a while, right, Jordan? What do you think?
Yeah, I imagine it will get close. I don't think they will go day and date for their marquee single player titles.
Probably
just
not.
Because I feel like they still want the PlayStation 5 to have something to brag about. Like they want
Definitely
the Champions League final advert for Spider-Man 3 has to be like, it's PlayStation 5. It can have the tiny text. Like, say that comes out in like the Christmas period, sure, in February, put it on PC when you've made all your money in that first time, in that first kind of couple of months anyway. When we're starting to reduce the price of it on PS5, stick it on PC while it's still somewhat zeitgeisty. The 2 to 3 year thing, I think, is long done and was clearly them just testing the waters. And obviously your live service stuff is going to come to PC day and day anyway, so I see no real issues with this. I think there will be a delay, but 6 months maybe. It'll be something that is insignificant enough not to annoy PC players. But,
right. It'll feel like more like, oh, that's the time it took to just finish the port rather than we're artificially holding it back.
Yeah.
Even if they are artificially holding it back.
That. Wasn't the Last of Us Part 1 like, I don't even know, is that even out on PC yet? But that was like the
remaster came out on PC, right? Didn't
did
it?
Did that
Maybe it didn't.
I know it was coming to PC, but I can't remember what the
I
what
can't
the
keep it
split
straight.
was. But yeah, I think that it's going to happen. I feel like the people that actually care about this are psychopaths, but from a pure chest beating Sony perspective, I think they would like at least some impression of console exclusivity still happening for a little while.
Yeah, and I think that will definitely continue to happen with God of War and Last of Us and probably Spider-Man, but who knows, with Marvel being involved there, maybe there's some wiggle room on like action. Maybe that does come out on PC right away. Probably not. But I think anything below those, like very top tier, very likely could show up day one on PC. And what difference would it make? Other than probably some of the games would do much better on PC than they ever did before. And they would like, and also like you save money because that's one marketing push instead of 2 marketing pushes. Obviously, they're not spending as much money on the second marketing push. When it comes to PC, they recognize they're not going to make as much money, so they lower what the marketing budget looks like. But they do market those things, and that does cost a lot of money. Marketing is one of the most expensive things for all these companies. Strauss-Zelnick just said that about Take-Two. It's true across the board. So one marketing push for getting these games out the door, or one extended one where it's like, hey, it's out here on PlayStation, and then 3 to 6 months later, it's out on PC, and we're still kind of doing that same marketing push. Yeah, that's something I think they'd be like, well, that's an easy way to save money. So a lot of these things are on the table, but clearly they are going to get more aggressive, as they said, about their PC support, and that's what the multi-platform strategy looks like. Now, do you think that this is a slippery slope of any kind to any game in the PlayStation library coming to Xbox?
What's an Xbox?
It's a like a box where it supports DirectX, which is the PC gaming library. It's a whole thing. It's an American thing. You guys wouldn't Don't worry about it. It's like it's a sheep stomach, and you stuff a bunch of like corn-fed shit in there. Yeah.
Now we're talking.
Now we're talking.
Is that the thing that you can swap the faceplates? Because I'm a part of Generation Remix. So
Yeah, right. Yeah, yes. Your skater girl. What was her name? Skater girl. Yeah, absolutely.
No, Sony has absolutely no reason to release their games on a console no one has. So no, I don't think that's going to be a problem.
I think if you put Helldivers 2 on Xbox, a lot of people would spend a lot of money on that on Xbox, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay, games of that tier, maybe, sure, whatever.
Right, there's nothing above that tier.
I'll be cold in the ground before The Last of Us is on Microsoft console.
Yes, 100%. No chance. You're right. That one doesn't even make sense. But 27 million Xbox Series X's and S's have been sold, and that's people who are probably primarily playing Call of Duties and Fortnites and live service games with their friends already. So live service game that you want to sell like microtransactions in, maybe
put that stuff on everything, like your marathons and whatever else. Like, who cares about that stuff? I think it's I have this really. I think it's because the PlayStation 4, and you remember the PlayStation Vita, the greatest handheld of all time. You remember cross-buy? That was the greatest incentive ever. You buy it on one, you get it on the other.
Yep.
I always feel with stuff that I have on multiple platforms, I'm like, why can't I just download it on the other thing?
Yeah.
Like, why can't I? Why can't I just do this?
Why not? It should just, like, if this was a reasonable industry, that would just work.
Yeah, come on now. But yeah, I think your live service stuff does end up on
maybe
the adorably all digital Xbox and stuff like that. But your big stuff, no.
And listen, even the little stuff it's a long shot. All I'm saying here is the way Todoki talks about it, it does sound like a softening of a position that they once held pretty rigidly, that I think Jim Ryan fully believed in. And now, like, Jim Ryan got out while the game was good, and things can change, and them softening their position on PC gaming suggests the possibility of softening it across the board on some of these things. And if it's about making profit, which is what he's explicitly saying the next couple of years are going to be about, you make more profit by having a live service game out in more places. All that said, it's probably not going to happen. That's just thinking out loud once again. All right, a lot of Sony news, but let's take a break and we'll get back into some other stuff right after this. Thanks for listening, everybody. All right, we are back. I got another headline here. Fans think Sea of Thieves' latest tweet is hinting at a PlayStation and Switch port. This is from Chris Scullion at VGC. A number of Sea of Thieves fans believe the latest tweet from the game's official Twitter account is hinting at upcoming PlayStation and Switch ports. The message, which is based on the traditional Valentine's Day roses are red and violets are blue rhyme, is being interpreted as a tease relating to rumors that Microsoft plans to bring the game to Sony and Nintendo's consoles. It reads, rowboats are red, and sometimes they're blue, other times they're green, occasionally they can be white. Wait, where were we going with this? Jordan Midler, is this the secret code, and have you cracked it?
We've been in the lab, we've been in the VGC lab all day trying to work this out. Absolutely nothing to do with the fact that we were told that Sea of Thieves is coming to all these consoles ages ago. But yes, yeah. I believe that this is the proof, if proof need be, that tomorrow, is it tomorrow? No, what day is it today? Whatever day.
The business update's tomorrow, if that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, sorry, I have it scratched into my arm with a knife, but I've got a long sleeve on. Tomorrow, Phil is going to come out, read this verbatim, and that's going to be the entire podcast. It's either that or whoever runs the Twitter account put that up, and they're like, "Oh fuck, oh no, oh no."
I wasn't supposed to say anything.
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait until this is done, man. I can't wait until we're just come out and say it. We all know. We're all waiting there. Like, we've got 50 articles pre-written, be like, it's coming to the Game Gear and shit like that. Like, this is happening. It also must feel weird for them to have this news that everyone knows, that they're just having to sit there and be like, well, cool. We'll just potter along. My question for you, Jeff Grubb, how quickly does this happen? How quickly, like the PS5 version of this game, how quickly are we getting this out there?
Oh, this year, probably. I mean, for sure by the end of this year, probably.
I think this is like a summer thing.
Yeah, I think much sooner than that. Yeah, probably by the summer. Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. I think there's a Sea of Thieves, a game I like. Haven't played much recently, so I haven't been paying attention to the updates. I think there's probably a big update coming soon. if it doesn't launch on PS5 with that one, maybe the next big update after that. That seems like a possibility.
Yeah. More importantly, get every game Rare's ever developed onto the Switch. That feels like a natural home, you know?
Yeah, Rare Replay, get that on there. God, that would be fantastic.
It's mental that there's no Rare Replay on Switch.
It should have happened a long time ago, and no one would have bet. Like, all the craziness that's happened with all these other games, if Rare Replay was on Switch, everyone would been like, well, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Who gives one fuck about the Gears of War? Who cares about Marcus Phoenix? We want Rare Replay on Switch.
It's like, and listen, it does nothing but good things for Gears of War if you put that on PlayStation. Like that, it should want to be on PlayStation. People who would be upset about that are out of their goddamn mind. But yeah, like Sea of Thieves, Rare Replay, get that stuff out on Switch, get on PlayStation 5, Sea of Thieves, maybe Switch 2, who the fuck knows. But yeah, I mean, listen, I think this week we probably, if not this week, very soon we do hear Hi-Fi Rush Pentiment out on Switch, and then Sea of Thieves confirmed not too much later. Yeah, we'll see. Gears of War is still under consideration. Last I heard, though, everybody.
I think that stuff's heavy boring. Personally, that seems like if that came out, if they just put it up on the Xbox wire that stuff was happening, I'd be like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I am desperate for the first time. They're like, Starfield's coming, Halo's coming,
right?
Like, big shit. That's when things get interesting. That's when the message is difficult. It's not difficult for them to come out and say these kind of like small games.
Yep,
they're coming everywhere. They're coming to Nintendo Switch and the PlayStation 5.
Yeah,
but when you have stuff that's like emotionally attached to the Xbox Nation, when the stuff that had Tim Dog in tears, when that stuff comes to PlayStation, now we're fucking talking.
Poor Tim. It's I mean, honestly, Pentiment coming on the Switch is, again, nothing but good things. Like, that's like, everyone should just be happy for everyone involved there, the people making it, people selling it, people buying it, people playing it. Hey, more people playing those games would be fantastic. You're right. The reaction and the difficult conversation around this is about if it would be Starfield, which now we're like, it's a lot of back and forth on that. We don't know if that's even really under consideration. Sounds like it probably still was under consideration, but who knows? All right, Silent Hill 2's latest trailer does not reflect the spirit of the game, Bloober Team president says. This is from Chris Scullion at VGC. The president of Bloober Team says Konami's latest trailer for Silent Hill 2 is not an accurate representation of the game his studio is working on. A new combat reveal trailer was featured as part of the PlayStation State of Play presentation in late January, but reception to the trailer was mixed. At the time of writing, the version on PlayStation's YouTube channel, which has around 1 million views, has only 54% likes, with around 29,500 of the 64,000 users deciding to leave feedback, opting to give it a thumbs down. In an interview with the Polish investor news channel, that's a Polish word probably for investing, the video for which appears to have been taken offline but was spotted and transcribed by Eurogamer Poland, Bloober Team president Peter Babino was asked about the reaction to the trailer. Babino replied that the latest trailer wasn't representative of the game Bloober Team was working on, and that he understands the negative comments being directed at the game based on the trailer. I wrote those negative comments myself, Babino reportedly joked, saying, in all seriousness, we are not responsible for the marketing side. Referring to Konami, he added, that is entirely the responsibility of our partner. Certainly this trailer does not reflect the spirit of the game. Man, it's got to suck to fucking work with Konami. It just has to fucking suck.
This story is out of the statute of limitations, so I'll tell it. And it may still be the case, but I don't deal with Konami directly in the UK. They have an agency.
Yeah.
At one point, when you wanted to deal with someone at Konami on the PR side, you had to reach out to them via telephone because their email addresses would change regularly.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've definitely talked about that on the show before, where it was like, I'd get an email from someone from Konami, and then I would be like, okay, it's a couple months later. I know that the Konami's working on this other thing, and this person probably is working on it. I'll go search my email for that person, and then I would look at this email and be like, what the fuck is this series of symbols and wingdings? What the fuck is happening here? And then I would like get another email from that person, and it would be a different series of symbols and letters and numbers. And I quickly began to talk to other people like, oh yeah, no, they randomize them for all their employees. So because they have such distrust and disdain for the people that work for them, Konami's a fucking nightmare. I don't know if they still do that. But when I hear this, it's like, God, they don't even know how to market Silent Hill 2, the game that they're like, oh, this is the tip of the spear for bringing Silent Hill back, and we're putting all this effort into making all these different games. And yeah, one of them is a weird acty game where people hate it. But hey, they're putting a lot of money into this franchise, and they're like, here is a trailer that makes it look like we want to be Resident Evil 4. It's like, oh no, okay. Bloober Team already has an uphill climb. Konami's not making it easier for them.
Yeah, the Konami thing's hilarious because it shows how short the memory span is of people that like games, because as soon as they're like, here's Solid Snake, here's Silent Hill, we totally forget that Konami is still Konami at the end of the day. Like, they've not had some kind of Capcom renaissance where they're going to start shitting out bangers. Like, I think is really funny how publicly annoyed Bloober Team have been repeatedly about this, about how they're just like, the marketing has been shit, we have nothing to do with it, we would do it better. I imagine that do you think this remake will be good? Bear in mind Bloober's output and Konami's Konami-ness. Where do you think it'll land?
Right. So I'm glad you asked, because this is what I was just thinking. To me, it seems like Bloober Team, at the very least, is understanding the criticism against it and the potential downfalls of remaking Silent Hill 2, and they're mindful of those things. Whether or not now being mindful of those things they'll be able to overcome it, who knows? But I think they're in a situation where like they're at least aware of the pitfalls and they want to avoid them, and that makes it like even more like, oh God, I'm so sorry you're in this situation where they have to deal with a Konami that's making it look like they don't get the game that they're making. I think they do get it. I just don't know if they're going to be able to execute it because it's Bloober Team still, and it's also a difficult thing to pull off in the first place. So, because of the Konami factor on top of Bloober Team, I think it's probably not going to be the game most people want. But there's still a chance. There's a chance. What do you think?
I think people are the Silent Hill hardcore, like, this is our Resident Evil 2 moment. We're finally going to get the recognition. We're going to get this perfect version of this game that means so much to us. And I bet at the end of it, they're like, you could have just released the PS2 game on PS5 and made it run in 4K instead of whatever you've done here.
Yep.
I also acknowledge that is influenced by what Konami have shown of it, and Bloober are like shaking the bars of their enclosure, being like, "It's better than this."
Exactly. That's why I couched it the way I did. It seems like they know that people did not want a fucking combat reveal trailer for fucking Silent Hill 2. No one was asking for that, and Bloober Team at the least seems like they understand that.
Yeah, I will play it from a position of curiosity. I'm way more invested in whatever the fuck they end up doing with Metal Gear.
Sure.
That's like, ever since first reported on by VGC.
Ever since fucking years ago now,
Yeah, I know. And no one believed it.
Yeah, I did.
Well, of course, you're a good boy.
I believe everything you guys say.
Just wait. Yeah, they don't even, the MGS thing is so much more interesting because it's like, okay, a lot of people care about Silent Hill, whatever. MGS is still fucking big potatoes. We've not had a new game in the MGS franchise in so long, and while it's still a remake, it's being couched as like, it's MGS Delta, like they're going to promote it like a new thing. And if that comes out and it's shit, we're done. MGS is like in the public consciousness, done. We're not going to go. We're not going to go.
It's going to get fucking buried hard if it's like really big disappointment. So yeah. I mean, I still have hopes for that. I think they'll be able to pull it off, but we'll
sell the fucking IP to Sony and let goddamn fucking Blue Point make an MGS remake. Come on now. It's so simple. It's so simple.
You know, Blue Point, but why not go get Dennis Dyack back? Do another Twin Snakes. Twin Snakes 2. Let's go.
Is he still kicking a ball?
Honestly, I don't know. I do say his name so often on these shows, and he's never yelled at me, so I assume he's not kicking about in such a way that he's like reading clips about himself. So yeah, that's
he's
good
not, for example, sending thousands of instances of fake traffic to profiles about himself like other people in the industry.
Can we like? Do you care if we just say it? Like, can we just? I mean, I know we talked about it a little bit before. We have a theory that Randy Pitchford buys advertisements about stories about himself to like get more traffic about Randy Pitchford stories. Because this is like when I worked at GameSpeed, theory. Mike's in chat. When I was one of the stories that always did really well consistently for years is some profile on Randy Pitchford, and we're like, why is that? And I was like, Randy's the kind of guy who would just be like, hey, I'll put this in fucking, what's that little block of images that appears at the bottom of the story?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like he would pay to like have his face appear in that or whatever. But I'm like, probably not. And then I talk to you, you're like, well, that happens to us too. I'm like, oh, all right, there it is. That settles it.
Just randomly out of nowhere, like it'll go bing, like right up to the top. Consequently, I just found this USB drive sitting on this
Oh,
desk.
Be careful. A lot of magic tricks on there, I'm sure.
It's absolutely soaking. I don't know where this came from. But...
all right. Ooh, all right, moving on. Report Toys for Bob has new projects in the works, and Microsoft supports them. This is from Jonas Maki at Game Reactor. When Microsoft announced the 1,900 people from their gaming division, mainly Activision Blizzard, were going to lose their jobs, Toys for Bob, which is responsible for Skylanders, Crash Bandicoot, Insane Trilogy, and more, was amongst the ones hit the hardest. There were even rumors claiming that the studio might shut down for good after they closed their in-person office. Fortunately, it didn't happen, and now the Crash Spyro YouTuber Canadian Guy A has told us more about the fate of Toys for Bob. It turns out they did shrink quite a lot, from 86 people down to 50 people, but them closing their office was planned for a long time because the lease was running out on an old airfield hangar that they had that was way too big for them. So that was always the plan. And they wanted to move to remote, and it seems like that's exactly what they've done. While this information is not confirmed, Canadian Guy A is someone who does have credentials in the space of like talking about Spyro and Crash previously. Also, apparently part of this, Microsoft is dedicated to Toys for Bob and their IP. So they are, Canadian Guy A says, don't worry. It sounds like they're going to keep doing what they've been doing. I think it was hard for me to like see the studio close or the office was closing and not read that as a really bad sign that they weren't invested in Toys for Bob after the layoffs. But I suppose it's a possibility that any one of those studios, given the choice to move remote, might select that, because I know a lot of developers would be very happy to be remote. But do you buy that Microsoft is invested in that studio going forward?
Look, I'd love that to be the case.
Yeah.
I think that'd be really nice. Maybe things fall in such a way that if all the Xbox games start coming to PlayStation, they're making more money. They have more money to play with. They're like, I suppose that money to play with is the money they needed to, because this is why this is happening. Like, I don't think Satya Nadella's Xbox is really in a position to throw about money to something like Toys for Bob. It's weird because Microsoft doesn't have like a kids IP and hasn't had for ages. Like, what? They don't have their Ratchet. They don't have their million Nintendo games. Like,
now they do, right? If they invest.
Well, that's the thing. Toys for Bob making a Spyro or a Ratchet or
Crash?
like a oops all platformers with like fucking Banjo and all like that. Yeah, like I would love this. I have a slightly cynical take that it might not happen. The man to speak to about all things Spyro and Crash is Liam Robertson. He's Doctor_Cupcakes on Twitter. He does digital gaming stuff. He has been in the weeds of Spyro and Crash for a long time, and it seems like there has been projects in those franchises that have been trying to get going, and it's just an uphill battle. There's just not the appetite to put money into it. Like, it makes me wonder, does Ratchet only happen because PlayStation know they're going to make the money on Spider-Man, so they've got to keep Insomniac happy? Like, let them do a Ratchet.
I do wonder if it's a one for me, one for you sort of thing. Yeah.
But it would be great. I think it's the story of Xbox's game lineup is a super boring one. Like, they all kind of taste the same, if you know what I'm saying. I would love something like a Spyro, something totally out of the blue. Like, they deserve a platformer that comes out and gets like Astro scores, because Toys for Bob like could do that. They have the talent in that stable. Let them out of the Call of Duty jail, Jesus Christ. But we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying about the same flavor, but it's like, if you like go down a notch in terms of production cost, Hi-Fi Rush and Pentiment do speak to a company that's at least willing to like let these studios do a little bit more. And I'm like, if you're willing to do that, why not get some of those platformers out there?
Yeah, that is those. I love it when they do stuff like that, because it's like, okay, there's still a hope. We're not just making things in the fucking Forza mold over and over. Not to say Forza's not good, but like, come on.
Well, but Forza Gears Halo was the complaints. Like, it's just those three over and over again. We don't want that anymore.
And it's still spiritually that. But,
yes.
This is the year. You know, as they always say, this is the year.
It's always this year. Yeah, listen, when I was kind of talking about Hi-Fi Rush back in the day, where it's like, hey, it cost this much, and cost this much and sold this much, and the how much it sold was a little smaller bar than how much it cost. At the time I did hear very assuredly Microsoft was very invested in Tango Gameworks, and they are going to support that studio going forward, and that they want to expand it. They are like doubling down on it, and it's like, I believe that there's a possibility here that something similar could happen with Toys for Bob and all these other studios. I'm mostly in a position where I'll believe it when I see it. I guess it's still early days for a Toys for Bob under Microsoft, but and I was about to say, but Bethesda was like, a long time, not 2018, but like, was it 2020, something like that? And I guess we have now seen Pentiment and Hi-Fi Rush. So I guess if it's like like 3 years, suddenly we start getting, hey, there's a Spyro game. That would be great. I'd be very happy with that. But I do think that they need to have a wider variety of games. What's the point of Game Pass if it's not to support a wider variety of games? So we'll see. All right, last couple of headlines here. PlayStation has filed a trademark for Intergalactic The Heretic Prophet, which I thought was your name, Jordan. So they're coming after you over here. This is from Tom Ivan at VGC. Sony Interactive Entertainment has filed a trademark application for Intergalactic The Heretic Prophet. As spotted by Gematsu, the trademark application was filed on February 12th in the United States. Online searches for the mystery project, which sounds like a sci-fi game, don't return any relevant results. Okay, I put this on Twitter, but I do believe this. Intergalactic The Heretic Prophet sounds like either the most generic bullshit I've will ever consume, or they named it something like this way because they're like, no, this is going to be like super cheesy, fun, good time, and we know what we're making, and we're going to have a good time with it, and it's going to be like your whole life. And I think it's either going to be amazing or something I never think about again. I don't know. Do you have any insight into Intergalactic The Heretic Prophet?
I actually know what this is.
All right.
And I was waiting to come on this podcast to break it. This is the new Naughty Dog project.
Sure.
It's due out next year. It's going to take place largely in my head. It's okay. We can go back now. The Twitter clippers have already got that. No, as Mental points out, that I thought these were Beastie Boys lyrics. Like, isn't there
Intergalactic, The Heretic Prophet, The Heretic Prophet, Intergalactic.
I like the. No game's going to come out called this. Come on now, this is not a game name. This is bullshit. This is just like let's cover the Heretic Prophet. Sounds like it could be some like fucked up religious horror game or something like that. But Intergalactic: The Heretic Project. Like, I do this for a living.
You know what?
If someone came to me with a game like that, I'd be like, no.
You know what it sounds like? It sounds like a failed Alan Wake novel. It sounds like, oh man, my book, The Intergalactic The Heretic Prophet, didn't. I had to change the story.
Writing The Heretic Prophet.
It sounds like a really pulpy fiction novel. Yeah, so we'll see. Either way, I'm like, hey, Sony, if you're gonna try some wild shit like that, that's gonna be sounding like stupid as hell. I'm all aboard. Let's go.
I fucking love stories like this though, because it will cut forward to 2026 or 2027, the Giant Bomb Game of the Year debate, and we'll be like, oh yeah, fucking Intergalactic The Heretic Prophet. What a game, man! It really redefined what I can do with a PlayStation VR 3. Like,
exactly. Like, I think there's a chance that like. It's only named this stupid because they believe in it so much. Like, that's the only way you get away with a name like this. And then all the other possibilities are you don't get away with a name like this, and it's terrible, and no one ever thinks about it again. That's why it's like it's one or the other here.
Call it Gun. Just call it Gun. No one's using the name Gun anymore.
Yeah,
it's the perfect video game name. Call it Gun.
There's no way that trademark's still valid. Finally, Restful Trails to Suikoden creator and Eiyuden Chronicle director Yoshitaka Murayama, who has passed away. This is from Nintendo Everything. We're sad to report that Yoshitaka Murayama has passed away following complications with ongoing illness. Murayama will be remembered for his work on the Suikoden franchise, as he was the creator. But he was also working on Eiyuden Chronicles, which is a game that is coming out very soon. I believe it's out in April. But yes, rest in peace to you. All right, I got a poll question. Let's get to that. While I get that set up, Jordan, why don't you tell people what you got going on, where they can find you, all that good stuff?
At Jordan Midler on Twitter, I would like to direct the Giant Bomb Maniacs, the Duders, to the most recent episode of VGC, a video game podcast.
Good podcast.
Which is on the VGC YouTube account. We had good friend of mine, the lovely Ben Starr, who has darkened the doors of this hallowed website many a time. And he's great fun. He's a lovely boy. He came to our Christmas party before Christmas, and we were so fucking drunk, Jeff. We were so fucking, because Andy put a lot of money behind the bar, and we were just, let's go.
Oh,
it was like a gaming bar in London called NQ64. They had Time Crisis, they had all that shit. And
hell yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful time. But yes, go and check that out. I think that's all I'll say, because it's February, boys. There's things going on. There's things getting done. So VGC, a video game podcast. Go and check it out. Yes, very nice Ben Star emotes in the chat. Before we get to this poll question, I have a slight poll question of my own.
Oh yeah, shoot.
And we talked about this on the podcast, and I'll just take yes or no's in the chat and your opinion too. Is Cloud Strife one of the top 10 most iconic gaming characters of all time?
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
I initially thought yes. But see, when you start thinking, you go the Mario, Luigi, Donkey Kong, then you get like Sonic and Pac-Man, and then you start talking about just Pokemon alone, that would probably be more iconic than Cloud.
If you start like doubling and tripling up on certain franchises, then yeah, he gets pushed out of the top 10 because Bowser's more iconic than Cloud, I think.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about like iconic characters from franchises, like representing a series or something like that, or even representing just their own game, I think Cloud is like near the top 10. Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of agree. Lexi, no one knows any fucking Pokemon. Lexi, I hate to break this to you, but Pokemon is probably more well known than any other media property on planet Earth, on current universe. I think, yeah, if you're going to do a one pair, I think yes. Also, the argument becomes man on the street versus iconic, because I think there's Cloud is more iconic than some characters that man on the street would know. But it's a difficult conversation. A lot of people were saying Lara Croft, but I don't know if Lara Croft kicks a ball anymore, because they've not made. I mean, I know that remaster literally just came out, but Lara Croft's very popular in the UK because of Lucozade, which was like a sports drink. They did adverts where Lara Croft would drink it, and that was a big thing. But I don't know. A gaming Mount Rushmore is really boring, but we were talking about this because Cloud is like fucking. Because I know who Cloud was before I knew what Final Fantasy VII was. Sure. I saw a figure of him, and I was like, look at that motherfucker.
Look at that guy with the hair and the big sword. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. God bless Cloud Strife.
Mount
February
Rushmore's
29th,
fine.
coming soon.
It's Mario. Is there anyone? I kind of just let's do it just real quick. Who is on the Mount Rushmore of gaming characters? Because it is
Mario.
Oh, obviously Mario. Is it
Pikachu?
Link? Pikachu.
I don't
probably not Link.
I think it's as much as I hate him, I think it's Sonic. I think he has to be on there.
Yeah, probably.
And like the last one is perhaps difficult because it's probably like maybe like Pac-Man, like just
right, like
worldwide.
I don't think we kind of don't even get to photorealistic characters until a little bit after the top four there for a Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
Were people saying Ryu from Street Fighter?
Sorry, my dad has no fucking idea who Ryu is, but he knows what Pac-Man is. Like, come on, behave yourself here.
The Pong ball, yeah.
If you're maybe like Steve from Minecraft gets into this conversation, maybe. like yeah,
maybe. All right, poll question. I got it right here. How do you think backward compatibility will work on Switch 2? See here, 12% say it will generally require users to pay for an upgrade. 13% say it won't work at all. 23% say it will work for every game and they will run better. 52%, however, a majority believe it will work for every game, but they won't run better. So it'll just be the same performance you see on the Switch, but now on the Switch 2. I did go, they will run better. I think it'll be a case-by-case thing, though. I don't think that'll be across the board. I am like somewhere between they won't run better and they will run better, but I do think now, and most of this is informed speculation, that it will be backward compatible at this point. So, yeah. What do you think?
Mine is. Yeah, mine runs old games, so I assume when the general public gets their hands on it,
sure. Just like to get those I'll give it a little break. You just like to get those clips, huh?
Yeah. I mean, what's those fucking accounts that are always on my For You page? It's like, I only know this show's happened because I see your face, and it's like, Jeff Grubb said this. It's like, for fuck's sake. What's he doing now?
And I like most of that. I've set mine up in such a way that I don't see most of those, so I'm always surprised when it like really pops off. I'm like, what the? I don't even remember talking about that.
When you're in trouble.
When I'm in trouble.
When the AI profile pictures are after you, you know.
When I am getting spanked on the bottom by Twitter. Yes. All right, we got a new poll question here. How are you feeling about the upcoming PlayStation 5 games? You have two options here. I have plenty to look forward to, or I don't have a lot I'm looking forward to. I just want to get your general sentiment. I bet, as it stands today, got Final Fantasy VII Rebirth to look forward to. That seems like plenty on its own, but we'll see. We'll see what. And then third-party games. I think most people are going to be just fine saying I have plenty to look forward to. But we'll get the results on the show tomorrow here on Giant Bomb when we do another Game Mess Mornings. Jan will be on that show, I believe. Speaking of Giant Bomb, Light Club later today. Actually, not too long from now. We moved it around. I think we're going to be doing it 1 p.m. Eastern. That's what it says on the calendar. We had to move it around because we got some meetings happening this week. But yeah, so look out for that. And then I think there's a handful of other things happening. We might do a fun stream in the middle of the day tomorrow. Obviously, there'll be voicemail dump truck. UPF, we're going to kind of do a grab bag, try to catch up on like, I don't know, maybe not Sea of Thieves, God, Sailor Stars. What's that game called? Skull and Bones. Skull and Bones. I got it. In the end, we got there.
Is that out? Is that out? No way that's out.
Well, the beta's out still, right? Can you still play the beta?
I don't.
Actually, I think that game is out. I think it's out early next week. Now that I think about it.
They have money to have a Michelle Rodriguez led podcast about Skull and Bones. Come on now.
What the fuck did you just say? What do they have? Michelle Rodriguez podcasting about Skull and Bones for the Ubisoft Corporation?
Yes. Go and check it out now. Skull and Bones cast. I don't think it's actually called that, but that is that's going down.
What are we doing?
I don't know.
What are we doing?
Singapore's got a lot of fucking money, bro.
All right. Jordan, thank you so much for hanging out with me today, talking about video games, I guess.
You're very welcome, babe. I'm going to go and take some Motrin PM that I picked up the last time I was in the
Again,
US.
Everyone ends a podcast with me in the last day or two by going to take some medicine. Thanks for listening, everybody. Go get yourself some medicine for whatever ails you, apparently me. Until next time, everyone, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye.
Bye-bye.